Welcome, everyone, to this last session, this last webinar for today. We have more tomorrow, but that's the last one for today. We have had several sessions in the morning and in the afternoon, so that's I think it's the seventh session that we have today. Many ideas, many things to reflect, and now we are moving into a crucial topic, which is how to enhance, how to improve our relationship, how to have a satisfactory relationship with our supervisor. So many of you have attended other sessions, some are new, so let me introduce our team. So this is a session which is part of a larger event, a dissemination event, the final multiplier event of our European project. It's a project which focuses on researcher identity development, and we are particularly interested in early career researcher development. When I say we, I refer to a team of researchers from different countries that we have been working together for almost 10 years now, and doing empirical research and offering different kinds of resources and training all over the world. We invite you to visit our website. You can see here in the slide the address, the www.researcheridentity.com. You can find here the results, output, resources, and publications of our projects that are available on an open regime basis. We will be more than happy to share them with you. And mostly, we invite you to join our social network. That's the final output we produce. It's an interactive site for early career researchers. It's called Researchers Like Me. And it aims to be, the aim is to create a community for early career researchers, for us to share challenges, worries, but also resources. So we will be very grateful if you share with us your experiences and give us feedback. It's still a beta version, but please, if you enter, let us know how it works and how do you feel. We want to develop a useful tool to develop as researchers and enjoy a sense of community among peers. So, as I said, this session is on creating and developing a satisfactory relationship with our supervisor. And let me share with you some information about who are we together. We gather participants from different countries, 22 countries. We are here today. That's one of the interesting things of this online situation. So the pandemic has also some opportunities, and this is one of them. More than 150 participants registered for this session, and different countries include Africa, people from Morocco, Nigeria, United States, South America, like Gabriela, our speaker today, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Ecuador, and Asia, people from India, Japan, someone from Egypt also, and all over different countries in Europe. So welcome everyone. 2/3 of the attendance to this session are pre-docs, and the last third is more or less equally distributed among postdocs and doctoral program developers or doctoral program coordinators. Well, as I said, Gabriela is the speaker for the session, so she will lead the presentation of the content. Good afternoon for us, Gabriela. Good morning for you in Mexico. Gabriela is part of the team. She was before in Barcelona, now she's in Mexico, and is an affiliate professor and researcher in the Faculty of Education at the UPA University in Mexico. Her research interests include postgraduate education, supervision, academic writing, but she particularly focused on her research on supervision. So this is actually the topic for today. As you know, some of you know already, the dynamics of the session will be like that. So first, Gabriela will present the topic and probably will ask some questions in an interactive way for 20-25 minutes. Then we'll open the floor for discussions. So for questions, sorry. We ask you to send the questions to the questions and answer tool through this tool. You have this panel here. Please send the questions there and we will leave the last 15 minutes to answer the questions. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, don't worry. So Gabriela kindly offered to answer them offline. So we will circulate the document with all the remaining unanswered questions if the case. So if we don't have time to discuss them online. We will use the chat for interaction during the presentation, to comments, to, answering issues that Gabriela will raise for the participants, and also to share and interact for other among the participants. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all. Welcome, Gabriela. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Casello, for inviting me to this amazing event. I know that, that you have it like an incredible response from all over the world, so that's amazing. And thank you to everyone for joining to this session. I know that you have been like in many sessions, so we are almost finishing. So thank you and welcome. Well, as Dr. Castillo has explained, in this session, what we will do is we will reflect about the supervisory relationship and some issues that can help us to improve the interaction between students and supervisors. So we will have some activities, and we will request that you help me, to do it. But we will see that during the session. So, okay. To begin with, we are going to take a quiz. If you're an advisor, when you answer the questions, you can think on your doctoral advisor, okay? The one that you had when you were a doctoral student. So now I'll show you the quiz, and please let me know. You can say in the chat if you are seeing the quiz. So you have a few seconds to take the quiz, and by now you don't have to share, okay, your points or your answers. Just please answer any of these questions, and if you are an advisor, you can think on your past experiences when you were a doctoral student. Okay, when you are ready, please let me know. You can raise your hand using the Zoom tool to know that you have completed the quiz.
Okay, we have several participants raising hands.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Not all of them yet.
Okay, we will wait a little bit more and. Okay, thank you. Okay, it's okay, Mariela. If you can answer all the questions, just you can take only some of them. Okay, now that everyone is ready, let's see the results. Okay, now you can check your points. Okay, how many points did you get? Did anyone get 4 or 5 points? I mean, did anyone know the way to know about your supervisor? I mean, do you have like all this information about your supervisor? 5, okay. There are people who know a lot about your supervisors. So we can see, and we know that getting to know our supervisors is important. Okay, thank you. Okay, I can see that many get like almost all the points, and someone says that get like 4.5 points. So, and others with one, okay. We all know that getting to know supervisors is important, but there is information that can help us to become familiar with them. But we should concentrate on aspects that facilitate the collaboration and work with the supervision process. So it's okay to know about the relatives or some aspects, you know, about our supervisors, but we need to concentrate on knowing these aspects that will help us to move forward with this progresses in the doctoral, with the doctoral studies. And why is this essential? I mean, why is it important to develop and sustain good relationships with our supervisors? The interaction with the supervisors or group of supervisors is not only necessary to complete the dissertation. This relationship is essential to promote the research engagement. Probably you have seen some of these topics along the other sessions. You know, the supervisory relationship, what it can help us to promote research engagement, satisfaction with doctoral studies, reducing dropout intentions, and overall, these relationships provide the context for students' learning. Okay, and some of the most significant events during the doctoral process are related to this relationship. Therefore, having a supportive environment is essential for enabling researcher development. But we also have to perceive that this relationship is being supportive. So for doing that, it's very important that we can reflect in the way how we are perceiving this relationship, because our perceptions towards the relationship are fundamental. But sometimes what we had in mind about how the supervision process works can be slightly different from reality, as we can see in this picture. I mean, I don't know if you are in this situation, but probably sometimes we have like picture about how supervision should be and what we are like expecting from our supervisors. And then when we go there, well, we can see that this can be a little bit different. And this can happen not only for the students, but this can happen also for supervisors. Okay, and to reflect a little bit more about this, I give you a few seconds to picture your relationship. So please, here you can see like there is an activity. So I'm gonna ask you that you please describe your relationship with your supervisor or with your students in no more than 3 words, okay? And then please share your answers on the chat. Okay, it has to be quick. I mean, you shouldn't like think too much. The first that comes to your mind, and please just describe it briefly. We only need like 2 words to see how you picturing your supervisory relationship. Okay, thank you, Dimitri. Okay, psychologically unsafe and unempathetic. Okay, thank you. Okay, cordial but distant. Okay, thank you, Liana. And well, others, I don't know if other participants, this has been like easy. Sometimes describing of relationships, it's not that easy as we think. And why is that? Because describing or characterizing this relationship may be more complex of what we think, because this relationship involves a dynamic and multidimensional interplay between students and supervisors. Okay, and thank you. Okay, reliable, cultural closeness, admiration. So as we can see in the chat, there are like difference between how we are perceiving this relationship. And I mean, that's okay. I mean, not all the supervisors are the same. And of course, not all the students are the same. So it's okay to have these differences. But also we have to have in mind when we describe or characterize what are we like experiencing this relationship is that this supervision process is dynamic. Okay, what this means? Okay, it's dynamic because it must change as we progress with the doctoral process. Students in the initial stage require different support than those students who are near to complete their doctoral dissertation. So as we can see here in the graphic, now we can see that there are different doctoral stages, and we can, and I mean, every stage has like its own challenges and characteristics and needs and requirements. So that is why this process can be the same, okay, in all the stages. So something that we have to reflect about it is if we are receiving or providing the same supervisory support along the doctoral process, okay? Because if we notice that this is happening, we need to change it, because maintaining the same kind of support, communication and collaboration in every doctoral stage, it's not going to be effective. Probably you are experiencing that. I mean, if you are having the same communication of the same support that you had when you were in your initial stage, I mean, when you were like very novice to the research process, and then when you are almost ready to completing your doctoral dissertation, and now you want to, maybe you need support to find options about what's going to happen with your career. I mean, if you want to apply for an academic career, or maybe applying for another field. So as you can see, I mean, this interest that we have, the needs that we have as students may change. And also the expectations that supervisors have from students may change too. So in order, to get all this like working in an effective way, we need that the help of the supervisors can support students to develop research skills, encourage autonomy and agency. Okay, so thank you everyone for sharing your answers. I can see like there is like different aspects that you are identifying in your relationship, and that's, I mean, that's quite important. And okay, now let's move, okay, to the next slide. And I like that you see this image, because we can also, we need to reflect, I mean, not only about the dynamic aspect of this relationship, but also about why it's multidimensional. Okay, this relationship is multidimensional because it does not develop in a vacuum. Okay, it relies on experiences, conceptions, knowledge, expectations, and it involves different domains of activities. Okay, therefore, the characteristics of the interaction between students and supervisors play a critical role in supporting the doctoral journey, student socialization, and career trajectory. In that regard, it's essential that both students and supervisors play an active role in the supervision process. So here, as we can see in the image, you shouldn't be the only one communicating in this relationship. And this applies for both, I mean, for students and supervisors. Okay, sometimes as students, we can, expect that the supervisors make the whole work. And sometimes supervisors are waiting the same from the student, okay? Here, we need to try to establish a balance and to communicate how we want to work and how we're going to establish and to develop this interaction, and what are we expecting from one, and what are we expecting also from the research process, okay? But for doing that, we need to be active. I mean, both the supervisor and students can be passive. I mean, both of them need to be active in this relationship, because that is what is going to help to this dynamic and multidimensional characteristics. So what we should try to do is avoiding what we see in this picture, okay? Probably sometimes we can experience that, but we should try to avoid this, okay? Because if we maintain this type of interaction, it's gonna be like, I mean, this can become like an important difficulty that probably if we keep it like for a long time, it's gonna be difficult to be able of having like a good resolution of this situation. Therefore, a common understanding about what is expected from the supervisory relationship from the overall doctoral process is a necessary step to identify and manage tensions and difficulties that could appear during the doctoral trajectory. such as miscommunication and misunderstandings. Therefore, a mismatch between expectations can lead to dissatisfaction, okay? Which this dissatisfaction can increase with time, and that, of course, it's gonna be like, it's gonna bring like more negative events, or we can feel like, we can experience like negative emotions and other aspects that will affect not only the relationship with my supervisor, but all the doctoral process that are taking. Okay, so in that regard, it's very important to adjust expectations. As we can see here in the picture, we can, both the students and supervisors, well, they have expectations. And probably these expectations may be different. So here the challenge is to adjust and clarify these expectations, because it's not only to say, okay, we will work together, but also we need to clarify what means to work together, or what are we expecting of this work. So clarifying and adjusting expectation, it's an essential step to improve the whole interaction. And all because having a misfit or mismatch with this can bring more problematic situations. And not only, as I said, this is not only affected to the relationship, but also to the doctoral process. In that sense, doctoral students and supervisors can experience problematic situations associated to the supervision, okay, to this development of the relationship. And these difficulties can appear at different stages and different ways during the doctoral studies. So here you see this blue line, okay? This could be the trajectory of a supervisory relationship. So as we can see, we have to remember that this relationship is dynamic. So it cannot be a horizontal line. You know, we can find like this high and low points, where high points are positive events and low points refers to some problems or difficulties that we're having with supervision. So what we need to do when we reflect about how are we building these relationships, it's that we need to recognize what are these situations, okay, in which we are experiencing problems and difficulties. Because that is not only helpful to identify why are we living, okay, and what are we dealing through, but that is also helpful to reflect about the way in how we are managing difficulties, and also to see if these strategies that we are applying, that we are using, are being effective or not, or if we need to make a change about it. So to explore a little more about this, I'm going to ask your help with the next activity. And so what you need to do is to think about a challenge or difficulty during your doctoral studies that are associated with the interaction with your supervisors or your doctoral students. And then try to respond how you feel, what did you do in that situation, and if what you did it work or didn't, okay? Take, please, 3 minutes to reflect on these questions, and please share your answers on Padlet. There is no need of adding your name. You just can post your the description of these, your responses of these questions. And there is no way that we know who it's like posting these answers, so don't worry for that aspect. Here is the code. If you want to scan the code in your cell phone, this will direct you to Padlet. And for those who are who don't have that that function in your phone, I will post now on the chat the link so you can post your answers. So please take a few minutes, no more of 3 minutes, to post your answers. Okay, now I'm copying the link. So here you have it in the chat. So I'm gonna leave here the activity so you can follow the questions. And you don't have to provide an extensive response. You can say just very, very briefly, how did you feel and what did you do? And to identify if the thing or the action that you apply were helpful to solve the situation, or if this situation wasn't solved. Okay, thank you for posting your participations. I can see that now I can see the answers. So let's give you a time for completing your responses. Okay, now, well, if you check the board, you can see that there are like many different experiences. But of course, recognizing emotions are quite important. So in that case, especially when we are experiencing negative emotions, it's quite important that we identify which are these emotions and what are we doing with them. Okay, and this especially when we don't have like the answer that we are waiting from the supervisors and also from the students, because remember, I mean, these situations, these difficulties can be experienced from both sides. I mean, from other students and also applies to supervisors. I mean, especially some supervisors that are newcomers and that probably it's their fears or second experience supervising students, they can also struggle with some situations with the management of the research process and with applying or using some supervisory practices. Okay, thank you to everyone for participating and posting your answers. Here we can see, I mean, that we are not alone when we are dealing with these type of situations. I mean, it's not what we, I mean, it's not desired to experience it, but it can happen, no? And it can happen also when we are having like a satisfactory relationships, because sometimes we have this idea that a satisfactory relationship will keep like always the same. But having these turning points, I mean, these significant events and experiences, negative situations can become turning points for moving forward with the relationship. So these negative experiences can become learning opportunities, but we need to do we need to apply some strategies to make that transformation from negative situation to a learning opportunity. Okay, so I'll continue with the presentation. Okay, in order to explore a little more about how are we solving or what are we doing to manage these problematic situations, it's important that we identify and also characterize the strategies that we are putting in action to address these challenges or difficulties, okay? And so in that regard, in one of the studies that we conducted here with this research team, we identified 3 different ways of managing difficulties with supervision. Okay, 3 different ways that you are seeing here in the slide. So as we can see in the first group, the attention concentrates on the problems. And here we can find students that probably are investing too much energy on emotional aspects. Now, here we are only focusing, concentrating, and putting all our energy on the problem and its consequences. And maybe we want to escape the problems because we just see everything like black. We don't see a possibility to solve the situation. And probably every day this is becoming like harder to solve. With the second strategy, here we name it local because this is more strategy oriented. Okay, differently to the first one, in this group we find to those students who concentrate on the problems, but not only that. Okay, in these groups there is an initiative to solve the problem, but the way of approaching the problems differs between local and regulatory strategy. So here in the local, we see that while we are problem, and we use strategies to handle this situation, to try of solving this difficulty. But the issue here is that these strategies become temporal or partial solutions. I mean that they are only like helping us from solving only a part of this situation, not everything. Instead, with the regulatory strategy, we find that the students in this group are trying not only of understanding the difficulties, but also reflecting on these difficulties and doing this because they want to find possible alternative actions that work for a long term. I mean that these strategies that I apply, it's not only that it's going to help me in the moment, but it's going to help me to address the whole situation, and it's not going to encourage and empower the development of the relationship. And of course, that will help me with the doctoral process. So here, when we use regulatory strategies, the goal is achieving an effective and long-term solutions. Okay. Here we can see some examples where we can find these strategies. So I'll give you a moment to read them, and then I'd like that you indicate the type of strategy that we find in each example. Okay, you can share your answers on the chat room. So if you finish of reading these examples, well, I'd like if you can share on the chat room, I mean, in this first example, what type of strategy are we using? I mean, this person, what type of strategy is using? A local strategy, a regulatory strategy, or it's not using a strategy? Okay, thank you. Okay, okay, the first one, it's a local strategy. How do we know this? Because here we see that this student is trying of addressing and dealing with this difficulty. But what the plan that he's taking probably is going to help him or help her for a short moment. I mean, it's applying for a research study abroad. It's a good way of finding new collaborations or maybe having a different experience with other professors. But at some point, this person will need to go back to the same lab or to the same research contents, and then the situation will be there still. I mean, this person will need to find another way to solve the situation with the supervisor. Okay. In the second one, we can see that, yeah, the second one, it's kind of tricky because with the second one, we can see that there are a lot of negative emotions, but then this person tried to do something, but it wasn't effective. So in this case, could be related to a local strategy, but then if the strategy that he's using, if the attempt that he's doing, despite of the motivation that this person has, if it's not working, it's not, and if it's not addressing the difficulty, it's not, I mean, it's not like considered like a strategy. So in that case, because we are like concentrating on the emotions, and then we try to do stuff, but at the end, those stuff are not working, and not even working for a short, for a short time. I mean, they are not working at all. So in that case, we need to revise if we are really applying or not a strategy, or we are only concentrating on the problem. And probably if we do this, what happens is that this problem can become bigger, and it's going to be even more difficult to solve it. Okay. In the last one, you can see here that there is a big difference with the other ones. So here we can see even that the description is more extensive. So what do you think that happens here? I mean, you can comment on the chat. Okay, well, here in the last one, we can see that there is a regulatory strategy. So we see that here, this person is not only understanding the situation, but also conducted an evaluation and trying to look for a long-term solution. So by doing this, I mean, this activity was aimed not only about identifying or knowing about which strategies we can use, but also to reflect how important it is to put attention on the way in how we are perceiving and managing difficulties, because these perceptions and the management of the difficulties can become facilitators or obstacles. So we can see like how's the difference when these perceptions and management become facilitators, and those when we just focus when we take these perceptions only in a negative way, I mean, that is not helping us to understand and move with the situation, they can even lead to dissatisfaction, not only with the supervision, but with the doctoral process. So to finish this presentation, I'd like to share with you some strategies that maybe can be helpful to handle these situations, and that maybe can also be helpful to improve the satisfaction with the relationships. First of all, it's very important to get to know your supervisors or students, but without crossing lines. As we see with this first activity, it's important to know what we want to know and how we want to develop this relationship. Define a research agenda. We need to be proactive and prepare meetings, establish objectives, and share all this with our supervisors. Discuss your research ideas and co-create objectives. Sometimes we are waiting that the supervisor is giving us all the information, or that the student is giving all the information. We can find a balance and make a space to co-create. objectives. Also, identify how you manage difficulties related to supervision and make time to reflect about your learning process, skills, and weaknesses linked to this management of the problematic situations. Take into account cultural differences, disciplinary background, that's important too, and recognize emotions and learn how to regulate them. And now, especially now, it's very important to keep expectations during tough times. Challenges and difficulties can become learning opportunities. And more now that probably we are experiencing new ways of supervising, and using other ways to communicate. So, well, that's all that I wanted to share with you. I hope that this was helpful and that maybe you can learn something new about supervision and about your own relationship and interaction with your supervisors and students. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Gabriela, for this interesting presentation. So many tips and so many clues. Let's say, let's talk a little bit more, some questions. So there is a question asking about how would be your advice for junior supervisors to handle this relationship? How should we approach it? Because you know that some postdocs, they are junior supervisors at the same time. So that's how to initiate this journey as supervisor.
Yeah, thank you. That's a quite interesting question. And probably, I mean, what we normally do is that we leave this development education of newcomers as supervisors until the end of the process. Probably some of them haven't received any training. So what we have to do first, and this goes especially to supervisors, is if we know that our students are interested in continuing their career into the academia, it's important that we acknowledge and identify if we are enabling situations that work as practices that will train them as supervisors. Because sometimes these problems is because we don't know what to do. No one knows that I was going to become a supervisor. I just received this email with the destination of the test and now I don't know what to do. And then also it's like we can reflect about our experiences with supervision, especially if these were satisfactory. There we can find good models and strategies that we can follow and to adjust to the work that we are going to develop with the supervisors, with our students. And also, it's important that we, as supervisors, see, as we see during the presentation, that we can experience problematic situations. So we need also support. We can contact to our supervisors, to other professors to get the support and to discuss about these situations, because we are not alone in this. I mean, there are others who are experiencing this type of situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many issues here. Yeah, so many issues. Yeah, how to train supervisors, that's important. So there are some other questions. When should we change supervisors or get a co-supervisor? When do we have to say no more? That's a difficult.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Because this also has to do with the disciplinary culture. I mean, in some fields, it's more common to have more than one supervisor, and in others, we still keep this traditional one-to-one relationship. But when there are more supervisors, can be more challenging, but also that can mean more opportunities for learning, because we have more variations, we have more models, we have more practices, we can have like more aspects that we can learn to, not only from one supervisor, but from others. But there it's very important to adjust expectations and to keep a clear communication with all the team. I mean, it's not only the student and every supervisor in a separate way, but everyone has to be working together to get the same goal. So it's important that in this case, the communication as objectives be there the whole time, because we need to establish agreement on how we are going to support to the supervisor. Probably I can provide methodological support, and maybe the other supervisor can focus on theoretical aspects. So it's important how we're going to develop this teamwork, but this has to be reflected. I mean, it cannot be everything like improvised, because if not, this is not going to be effective.
Yeah, it can be double challenging, someone says. That's another question. In which way institutions can take care of those issues? So that's a relevant question too, because maybe it's not only something that supervisors and students can do, but institutions also have to do something to
that's
improve.
true. The role of administrators in this process is also important, because sometimes the supervision practices relies on administrative requirements. I mean, because these are maybe we had manuals to follow, or we need to complete some procedures and steps, because those are requirements from the institution. So that's also important. So it's important that this process, it's, that in the reflection of this process, get involved also the administrators.
Yeah, and training the supervisors, which is something that we have been discussing during the day, and you know, we are interested in, and it's not as frequent in some countries. There are countries that they have some training programs and some initiatives to develop supervisors, but others we don't have this tradition. And well, you are supposed, yeah,
that is true. We have, in fact, institutions, when they have programs, we have resources, we can check websites when they have a lot of amazing advice and resources we can check to support our own practice. But in other institutions, we have nothing, and we are all by ourselves. So that can be more difficult. But that is why in this aspect, it's very important to identify if we are establishing networking with others who are in the same situation, and if we are looking for advice from professors with more experience in that topic. So that is why I was like emphasizing this active role. I mean, we need to be active as supervisors and students, because we need to be able to manage difficulties and do something that can help us to address these difficulties and not keep stuck there. Because if not, this can be become a burden and a very dissatisfactory experiences that maybe can mark not only my advisor, but also the doctoral process of my students.
Yeah, that's true. Violeta is saying that in Argentina, supervision activities are rarely regulated and rarely paid. That's something that happens, I think, not only in some, in South American countries, but also in other countries. Yeah, that's, and it adds another layer of difficulties, to this situation. Well, there are some people that is also saying that I wish I have heard this presentation in my first year of PhD. That's true. It's always interesting. So thank you very much. I think we are in time. So there's so many issues when talking about supervision, but I think we have started to reflect on them. So thank you, Gabriela, very much. And thank you.
All of you, and thank you for, let me share these reflections. I hope that they were helpful. And well, I wish you all the best. And a big thank you to all of you. And have a good night, good evening, and good day.
Good morning.
The world.
Well, remember all the participants, now we finished for today, but tomorrow will be more. So we have more sessions tomorrow. Check the website and you will see that we have still 4 more sessions. So we keep in touch. That's, we keep reflect on those issues. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.